HPCC Systems presents the ECL IDE. What is the ECL IDE? ECL IDE is an abbreviation for Enterprise Control Language Integrated Development Environment. It is a full-featured graphical user interface for ECL development, providing access to the ECL repository and many of the web-based ECL Watch capabilities. Now, the ECL IDE uses various ESP services via SOAP, although you can also operate locally with no SOAP or ESP at all. Now, here's some of the many features of the ECL IDE. Number one, it's customizable. You can move pads, adjust settings, colors, almost everything as needed. It has easy-to-use menus throughout the IDE, including the orb menu. There's also a ribbon toolbar and a quick access toolbar that gives you fast access to do what you need. It has right-click pop-up menus throughout the IDE. It has, of course, a full-featured ECL editor where all of your ECL definition code and builder windows can be created. And you have a good project management tool via the Workspace tool that allows you to open up windows that you've been previously working on a past session. In addition, the ECL IDE also has a very rich and robust results viewer and, for further data analysis, a graph viewer. Now, there's a lot of capabilities of the ECL IDE, but here's the basics. Of course, it's a programmer's tool providing the easiest way to create queries into your data. Now, the ECL definitions that build your queries are created by first coding an expression that defines how some calculation or record set derivation is to be done. Once you define this, it can then be saved and used in succeeding ECL definitions. Now, the ECL IDE also makes all of the ECL built-in functions available to you. This is located as a plugin and appears in the repository tree, and I'm going to show you that as we get into our demonstration. For example, we have a string library that contains common functions to operate on string fields, such as the toUpperCase function, which converts characters in any string to uppercase. And using the ECL IDE, you can mix and match the above with, again, your built-in functions and the ECL definitions that you create. Once these are built, the queries are then sent to the HPCC for processing. Now let's take a quick tour of the ECL IDE. When you load the ECL IDE for the first time, you'll be presented with a preferences window and a default configuration. Of course, you can create new configurations as needed so that you can connect to different HPCC clusters. So the server tab gives me my default IP address. The editor tab allows me to change default editor settings. I like to turn on line numbers, for example, and opening my MDI children maximized. Color control. We also have the result window control where you can customize the type of font, the size of the font, and limit the amount of rows that are to be displayed. Also, and most important, the compiler tab designates where your compiler is located locally on your machine, your working folder, and additional ECL folders that you can create or remove as needed. Now I'm going to switch over to one of my default configurations, one of my training clusters, and saving the information, using a login ID of my name so I can identify my work units on the HPCC cluster, and a no password is necessary in the Community Edition. I click on OK, and we now establish a connection with the HPCC cluster. You can see that my work units up in the upper right here are from previous work units are displayed, and in the bottom right hand corner my ECL repository where all of my ECL definitions reside. Now, being customizable, notice we have the ribbon toolbar up at the very top here, and also at the upper left hand corner an orb menu which has things like new, open, save, and also the ability to exit the IDE if needed. But we also have a quick access toolbar that emulates some of the options of the orb menu. Again, the ability to create a new builder window, to open existing ECL files, and save active files as needed. Now also we have this View tab where you can customize with one click the positioning of your windows. For example, we can move these windows from a reset right position to a reset left position. Let's do that right now. Alright, so we've moved our repository windows and work units. All of our search windows are now anchored to the right side. Okay, let's take a look at another very important feature that some ECL developers told me that I really need to talk about to all of our new users, and that's this Workspace option. When you start your day, you can actually load a workspace from a previous day's work and at one click load multiple files as needed. So you see here successively all of my files from the previous day's work will be are now being loaded. This is the ECL editor that you see right now. I've got a window called Basic Queries that's opened, and I've just hit the Submit button. Right now at the bottom you'll notice that there was an icon flashing by that was an arrow that was indicating that my work unit to the HPCC cluster was being submitted. And once I see a green checkbox, that indicates that my work unit and results have been returned. Clicking on that tab, you now see the results window that I spoke about, where all of the data that I sent in my query, and notice I've got multiple tabs here for different results, are also being displayed. I have counts, I have just some records being displayed, and so on. Now again, I mentioned to you the importance of the right-click menu throughout the environment. The results window has many features that you need to explore and are documented in the HPCC Client Tools PDF. Now for example, if I go over to the repository window, there's two big fundamentals that I need to stress here in this video. To create new folders as needed, you simply right-click on an existing folder and select the Insert Folder option. That allows you to better organize your code in your repository. If I already have a folder existing and I want to add a new ECL definition, I could right-click on that folder and then select Insert File. This will create a new ECL definition window accordingly. Now I also talked about the graph viewer and also access to ECL Watch. Every work unit in the ECL IDE has the ability to attach to the ECL Watch. And here you see more information about that work unit's details. For example, the job name, the description, my actual results I can look at as needed. I can look at the files that were being used by the query and graphs and timings, and also look at even the query code itself by looking at the query option shown here. There's also helper files that occasionally you may need to send to a developer if they're asking for more information, if you have some kind of a error or some log issue that you have a question about. So that's our ECL Watch look, and then also at the bottom here you'll see this tab called Graphs. This is our graphic viewer, and again, very powerful stuff. You get the ability to look at graphs of the entire process run of the query, and using this slider bar you can zoom in on a graph, zoom in on any area of the graph that's needed, and then look at things like record distribution and skew, and then by hovering a mouse over a particular process, you actually have tooltips available that shows you the graph process. So back to our Builder tab, we go back to our ECL code, and this gives you a quick view of the ECL IDE. To exit the ECL IDE, you can simply click on the upper right hand corner, the X in the upper right hand corner, or in the orb menu you can select the exit button in the lower right. So that takes a quick tour. That's a quick tour of the ECL IDE, and there's a lot more to show you that we'll show you in subsequent videos. This concludes this video for now. Thanks very much for watching.